Silvermoon City, home of the Sunwell, a strong foothold for the Horde, and the capital city of the Blood Elves. This glittering city and its people have faced many hardships. Over the years, we have seen how the Blood Elves handle these hardships and their resilience for survival. Silvermoon and its people have been around for thousands of years. This place is rich with lore and is the spot of many historical events in Azeroth. I thought it would be a good idea to take a journey through history to refresh the minds of some and to tell a new story for those who have never heard of Silvermoon or the Blood Elves. In order to tell the origin of Silvermoon properly, we will need to step back in time before the city was built and before the Blood Elves became what they are today. So please, sit back and relax as I tell you a tale of woe, grief, strife, addiction, but most importantly of all, perseverance. About 10,000 years ago, the world of Azeroth looked completely different from the one we know of today. Instead of having the multiple and different continents, there was one singular, massive continent that was all connected. Some of the races that we are familiar with today actually lived and prospered on this continent, one of those races being the Kael'thas, or the Night Elves. Back then, the Kael'thas were powerful magic wielders, and they gained their magic from a powerful font of arcane energy known as the Well of Eternity. The Kael'thas decided to build their capital city around the Well of Eternity, and thus it became the heart of their empire. This city was named Zin Ashari, named after their powerful and beautiful queen named Azshara. Queen Azshara was a powerful magic wielder, but wanted more power and became obsessed with the Well of Eternity. Eventually, a group of her loyalists and herself split off from the rest of the Night Elven society and became known as the Highborn. Because of their endless tampering and reckless experiments on the Well of Eternity, the Elves caught the attention of a powerful and evil army known as the Burning Legion. The leader of the Burning Legion, known as Sargeras, saw Azshara's ambition and contacted her with the promise of untold power, only if she offered her aid of summoning him to Azeroth. Queen Azshara agreed to Sargeras' plan, and with the help of her fellow Highborn, they began to use the Well of Eternity to try and summon Sargeras into Azeroth. Not long after, the War of the Ancients began in an attempt to stop Azshara from using the Well of Eternity to summon Sargeras and his Burning Legion. The forces against Azshara and Sargeras were successful in stopping their plan and sent their forces back into the Twisting Nether. But unfortunately, the Well of Eternity could not handle all of the magical energy and began to collapse in on itself. The ground began to shake with massive earthquakes, the sea began to flood the capital, and the land began to tear itself apart. Millions died, and the once proud capital of the High Elves was lost to the bottom of the ocean. This tragic event was known as the Great Sundering. In the aftermath, the world that they knew was gone and destroyed. The once massive continent was split and had spread itself across the surface of Azeroth, giving us the world and the lands that we know of today. During the Great Sundering, some of the High Elves betrayed Azshara and fled before succumbing to the disasters that overtook their city. After fleeing, the survivors arrived on the shores of an unfamiliar land. It was here near Mount Hyjal where they had found some of their Night Elven brethren. However, they quickly found out they were not welcome due to their previous actions with the Well of Eternity. But since the Well of Eternity was no longer there to supply their magic, they were deemed not a threat and were permitted to rejoin Night Elf society. The Night Elves did inform their Highborn brethren that because of the events at the Well of Eternity, that arcane magic was completely forbidden. Though the Highborn were okay with the agreement at the beginning, over time the Highborn began to realize that they were addicted to the arcane magic from the Well of Eternity. Over time, the Highborn began to struggle more and more with their arcane addiction, and in an attempt to convince the Night Elves that arcane was not to be feared and to allow the use of it, the High Elves accidentally released a vicious magical storm and then were permanently exiled from Night Elven society. After losing their home again, the Highborn set sail to find a new land to call their own. This time, the Elves were led by Dathomir Sunstrider, and eventually found new land and established their kingdom of Kael'thas. Once settled in their new home, the High Elves began to reject their old traditions of moon worship and instead turned towards the sun. Because of their shift in worship, the High Elves began to notice a strange change in shape and color as they lost their iconic purple hue and began to shrink in size. Now, they resemble what we know as Blood Elves today. Now, you may be wondering, why are you calling them both High Elves and Blood Elves? I will reveal in due time, but just keep in mind, High Elves and Blood Elves are the same. Now back to the story. Though they had finally found a new place to call home, many still faced problems with their magic addiction. This is when their king Dathomir revealed he had stolen a vial of water from the original Well of Eternity. With this vial, they created a new source of magic for their people, which is now known as the Sunwell. The High Elves, wanting to safeguard their magic and remembering the mistakes of the past, decided to implement runestones. These runestones act as powerful shields that conceal their magic usage and protect them from outside forces. Not only did they put in runestones, but as another line of protection, they casted a powerful spell to put the surrounding forest in a state of eternal spring. The High Elves then lived in their tranquil forest and their city of Silvermoon and Kael'thas for thousands of years, only dealing with their neighboring enemies. The kingdom of Kael'thas stood for over 7,000 years. Their city was impenetrable to all who had opposed them. They hid their magic well and kept their forest safe. Despite all of their efforts, an evil began to turn its eyes towards their kingdom. Kael'thas soon became the target of a violent, undead army known as the Scourge. Led by Arthas Menethil, the undead army marched from a neighboring human kingdom toward the home of the High Elves. The Ranger General, Sylvanas Windrunner, and the defense forces of Silvermoon did their best to hold back the undead forces from reaching the city. They ultimately could not withstand the undead forces. Their comrades and friends were raised in undeath right in front of them, adding to the already unrelenting numbers of undead. Sylvanas and her rangers fell to the might of the undead, with some, including Sylvanas, being forced to participate in the destruction of their city and people. The undead army pushed on and breached through Silvermoon's gates. Arthas achieved his goal and made it to the Sunwell, giving an undeniably chilling speech as he marched towards the Sunwell.
Citizens of Kael'thas, I have given you ample opportunities to surrender, but you have stubbornly refused. Know that today, your entire race and your ancient heritage will end.
Finally reaching the Sunwell, he used its powers to resurrect one of his most trusted allies, Kael'thas, turning him into a lich. Because of this resurrection, the Sunwell had been corrupted with death and decay. Were it not for Prince Kael'thas, the remaining population of High Elves would have fallen to the same fate of their dead brethren. Kael'thas destroyed the Sunwell, stopping the corruption from reaching his people.
Oma, teleport us to safety.
The aftermath of the Scourge's march on Kael'thas left a devastating mark on the people and their home. A scar of death and decay where the army had marched was left in their wake, covered in the skeletons of the High Elves of Kael'thas that were trying to escape. The surrounding forest were changed and twisted from the Scourge's dark magic and decay. Their city was severely destroyed, and over 90% of the High Elf population was now dead. Not only did the High Elves have to recover from this terrible massacre, but they soon realized that their source of magic, the Sunwell, had been destroyed. The remaining survivors now lived in a small portion of Silvermoon that laid relatively untouched by the Scourge. The High Elven King, Anasterian Sunstrider, fell in combat facing off against Arthas during the invasion. And I just want to say, this is one of the cooler showdowns that happen in lore that most people don't talk about. I mean, Arthas literally froze the sea so him and his army could continue to march towards the Sunwell. Then, King Anasterion was all like, "Nuh-uh, Arthas, not on my watch," and used his magic to unfreeze the ocean, which then caused a large portion of Arthas' undead army to then drown in the ocean. Then, the mad lad Anasterion decided to face Arthas in a 1v1 duel. Though he ultimately fell in combat against Arthas, this is still one of the coolest showdowns to happen. I mean, just listen to this back and forth sass talk between the both of them.
You may have been formidable once, but I sense your soul fading. Your life force flickering weakly. A flame I will gladly extinguish.
At least I have a soul, you despicable monster.
Not for long.
And though I'm very happy that they decided to add it inside of the Blood Elf Heritage questline, I would just love one day to see that fight fully fledged into a cinematic, a movie, whatever it is, to show off this fight in its full glory. That was my nerd rant for the day, now back to the story. Though King Asterion had fallen in battle against Arthas, his son Kael'thas Sunstrider had survived the Scourge invasion. As a way to pay respects for his father who fell and the High Elves who had lost their lives, Kael'thas proclaimed there shall be no more kings, and his people shall now forever be known as the Blood Elves. Left with a broken city and no magic source, the Blood Elves realized how dependent they had become on the Sunwell's constant arcane energies. The remaining population of Blood Elves now had to deal with severe withdrawal symptoms. Many more of the elves died as the sick, the young, and the old could not handle the severe symptoms that came with the absence of the Sunwell. In an effort to find solace for his people, Kael'thas set out to find a new way for his people to overcome their addiction. Now, we are going to pause the story for just a second here because I would just like to point out that there is a lot, and I mean a lot, of in-depth lore on Kael'thas and his journeys. Just because he has so much lore, I believe that should be its own standalone video, but the most important information that we need to know is that Kael'thas is on a mission to find a permanent solution to his people's arcane addiction. During his journeys, Kael'thas became stuck on a strange and broken world known as Outland. On Outland, he ran into a half-demon named Illidan's Stormrage. Illidan showed Kael'thas a way of siphoning arcane magic out of objects and creatures. Though it was not without a price, Kael'thas had to pledge his allegiance to Illidan. The desperate Kael'thas quickly agreed to this and was taught how to siphon the magic. Kael'thas was then able to communicate with some of his trusted advisors and taught them this new way of extracting magic. These advisors took this information Kael'thas had taught them and began teaching the rest of the Blood Elves this new way to extract magic. Though this was not a permanent solution, it did help to ease the pain of their addiction. The Blood Elves quickly reclaimed control of their city and began on the reconstruction of their home. All was good, and the Blood Elves began to feel invigorated by their newfound relief of addiction and hope for a brighter future. While still stuck in Outland, Kael'thas saw Illidan's demon hunters harnessing a different and strange source of magic known as Fel. Kael'thas believed he himself could harness fel magic and use it as a more permanent solution to his people's magical addiction. The fel began to overtake Kael'thas' mind, making him paranoid, erratic, and unstable. This left him susceptible, and in one of his crazed states, Kael'thas was contacted by one of the demon lords of the Burning Legion. His name was Kil'jaeden. Kil'jaeden whispered to the prince that he could teach him the proper ways of fel, only if he abandoned Illidan and joined him. Though Kael'thas refused, this began to gnaw away at him, and the seeds of doubt had been sown. Eventually, more and more of Kael'thas' men began to defect against him as he began to send out more orders that his men did not want to follow. At the same time, Kael'thas became increasingly suspicious of Illidan and began to believe that Illidan would soon betray him and his people that were stranded in Outland. Kael'thas decided to accept and join Kil'jaeden and serve the Burning Legion. Kael'thas and his most powerful advisors then made moves to overtake a magically rich area in Outland known as Netherstorm. Eventually, Kael'thas was able to claim the citadel located in Netherstorm known as Tempest Keep. Inside Tempest Keep, Kael'thas had to take down its defenders, one of those defenders being a Naaru named Muru. So, since Kael'thas was trying to keep up the facade of being a fair and benevolent prince, Kael'thas sent the Naaru to his people in Silvermoon. There, the people of Silvermoon used Muru as a power source as they siphoned the light magic out of the Naaru. Eventually, they sucked so much of Muru's magical power out of him that they eventually were warped into a void being. Not only did he send back the Naaru Muru to his people in Silvermoon, but he also started to send fel-infused items, making his people addicted to the fel properties inside. Which is why in Midnight you will find that certain elves still use fel as well as sell fel-infused weapons. Rumors of Kael'thas joining the Burning Legion began to spread through the Blood Elven people. Many did not want to believe that their prince would turn against them. Once they had discovered the truth, the Blood Elves decided to declare war on Kael'thas. The adventurers of Azeroth stormed Tempest Keep and eventually defeated Kael'thas. Many thought that this would be the end of the tale of Kael'thas, but after he was vanquished, one of the Demon Lord's priestesses saved Kael'thas by imbuing him with fel magic. Kael'thas then used his new-found life to advance his Dark Master's plan. Their plan was to use the Sunwell as a portal for Kil'jaeden to be summoned in Azeroth, just as Sargeras had tried to do with the Jara all those years ago. So, Kael'thas snuck into Silvermoon and took the Dark Naaru Muru. Kael'thas then used the Dark Naaru to open a portal with the Sunwell and was able to summon Kil'jaeden. The adventurers of Azeroth and the champions of the Horde and Alliance stormed Kael'thas and were able to stop Kil'jaeden from being fully summoned, sending him back into the Twisting Nether. After Kil'jaeden's defeat, one of the Alliance champions that helped us to storm the Sunwell was a Draenei named Prophet Velen. Prophet Velen was able to use Muru's heart and revitalize the Sunwell, turning it into a font that now pulsates with a mixture of both arcane and light energy. With the Sunwell now renewed, the Blood Elf people had their addiction permanently satiated. Though his actions were not for his people, Kael'thas did indirectly help solve his people's arcane addiction. And with the betrayal of Kael'thas, the Blood Elven people decided to be led by a sort of council instead, leaving Regent Lord Lothamar Theron in charge, along with fellow Ranger General Haldoran Brightwing and Grand Magister Romoth at his side. It took many years of reconstruction to return Silvermoon to its former glory before the Scourge's attack. But now, with the release of Midnight, we finally get to see the full grandeur of Blood Elf culture and the full beauty of Silvermoon. Thank you all so much for joining today, especially if you made it this far. I hope you enjoyed listening to the tale of the Blood Elves and Silvermoon. The history of the Blood Elves and Silvermoon has always been some of my favorite lore for World of Warcraft, as I have always been such a huge Blood Elf fan. I thought it would be fitting for this to be my first lore video, and hopefully, if enough people enjoy it, I will continue and do other lore moments in WoW. If you have any suggestions on lore that you would like to see, please leave them in the comments down below. There are some details that I did miss just to make it a bit simpler and easier to digest, especially for people that are new to the lore of World of Warcraft. I will be leaving links in the description to different videos that I used in this one, so that if you were interested in finding out more about the lore or watching them, you could go check it out. And I do recommend it, they're really good. I do have other World of Warcraft themed videos incoming, so please stay tuned. I do hope that you enjoyed your stay and that I will see you again next time. I have been trying to stream on both Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube, so if you ever wanted to stick around and see, I would love if you would drop by. That is all from me today, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye!